Hello, I am very glad to introduce myself as the author of my book on Shakespeare. I have written this book not to explain his life history, but I have dealt with his writings, particularly his dramas and his poems. His dramas are about more than 30 in number, and his poems are less than 150, including his sonnets. Perhaps if we include all his poems, it may come to more than that number which I have given. Whatever it is, Shakespeare is world renowned as a dramatist and as a poet. I am emphasizing the word "and" because once we say he is a poet, we do not attach importance enough to his aspect as a dramatist. So, we should attach equal importance to his poems and to his dramas. His drama, I was first introduced to Shakespeare's drama, through his Macbeth. I was introduced to it by my father, who read it out to me. It is fortunate that my father read out the entire drama to me so that I could appreciate it in the proper way. There is no doubt that Macbeth is a short drama, but a very, very well written drama. There is much progress in his thought and in his way of writing. So I think I had better. After Macbeth, I read Shakespeare by myself. I have read all his dramas, particularly the tragedies. I have read also his poems, particularly his sonnets. His sonnets themselves come to about nearly 150, and therefore they are a solid contribution to English literature by Shakespeare as a poet. So far as his dramas are concerned, his great tragedies are Macbeth, Hamlet, King Lear, and Othello. There are other dramas which are equally interesting. All of them are interesting. So there is no doubt that Shakespeare has earned a world renown as a dramatist and as a poet. His dramas are better known because they are played and reveal characters which are interesting by themselves, which are a study of nature. So, human nature. So, Shakespeare lived only for 52 years or so. Very short-lived, I think, but he wrote so much. His literary output is so vast that one almost feels staggered. Well, Shakespeare there are many plays which are so interesting that you can read them throughout life. They have got something to say. The Shakespeare earned so much experience in his comparatively short life. It is really surprising that he could produce literature of such high merit. That is why one feels almost worshipful when one thinks of Shakespeare. Shakespeare has inspired many later poets, even Milton. Milton wrote a sonnet on Shakespeare in which he expressed himself in terms of admiration. So, today I wish to say a few more words about my book. In this book, I have pointed out one or two aspects which are original, I believe. One is that Shakespeare, one is that in his sonnets, Shakespeare brings out his own picture as a bride, and he thinks of God as a bride, as a bridegroom for whom the bride is yearning. So it is an interesting idea, but it is so common in India. In Indian literature, particularly Sanskrit literature, we have got what is called Madhura Bhava, or the feeling of love between man and woman. That is called Madhura Bhava, between husband and wife, between two lovers. So, Shakespeare exploits this idea, and in his sonnets he refers to a friend. Who is this friend? Everybody asks, and everybody has got his own theory about so and so being possibly the person whom Shakespeare had in mind. Theories are endless. My own theory is that the friend he is referring to is God, and he is thinking of God all the time during the time when he was writing his sonnets. His sonnets were written when he was all alone in London and away from his family, who were at Stratford-on-Avon. So he had plenty of time and he utilized it in the best manner possible by writing his plays. And some of his poems record his own personal feelings about his solitude. As I believe, there is therefore a lot that we learn which is of great interest to us in Shakespeare as a man. Shakespeare as a man was a noble man. He did not entertain any sordid feelings. He had only a sort of dispassionate approach to human character. He was always thinking of human beings as human beings and as reflecting the greatness of God. He was always thinking of God also side by side with his family and with the world as a whole. He was looking at the world. He was trying to extract experiences from the world. He was also thinking of imparting experiences in his dramas, in his numerous writings. And all the experience that he has incorporated in his dramas and poems is worth its weight in gold, if I may say so. So, Shakespeare is a poet whom we study, whom we have to study closely in order that we may derive the best benefit from his works. Now, having said a few words about my book, in this book I have written I have referred to his life in a way, but I have not expatiated on his writings, on his lifetime achievements. That is not my idea. My idea is only to make known my own thoughts about some of his dramas and about his poems, how I have reacted to them. That is all. Only some, not all. It is not possible to cover Shakespeare because Shakespeare is a genius. He is a genius because he was able to do something which ordinary human beings cannot do. He wrote so many plays, about 35 in number. How many people have written so many plays? He has written so many poems. Sonnets alone come to 150. There are numerous poems scattered in his dramas. It is impossible to conceive of any literary man who is of equal merit as a dramatist and as a poet. To write about each drama means a book by itself. So I have not made that attempt. My attempt is only of a general nature about Shakespeare as a dramatist and as a poet. I have referred to his dramas and his poems here and there to the extent to which they may be relevant, but I have not chosen to write anything of a specialist nature about Shakespeare. Whatever I have written about him is derived from my own knowledge of Hindu philosophy, and I have tried to reconcile the concepts of the Hindu philosophy with what Shakespeare has expounded in his literature. With these few words, I now wish to thank you all for listening to me, these words. And it is true that I have learnt a lot from my father, who inculcated in me my interest in Shakespeare. That is number one. Even my lecturers in the college, they were very nice. They were very learned people, and they introduced me to Shakespeare's literature because I had to study some of Shakespeare's dramas in my student days. So, in that way, I became interested in Shakespeare. Thereafter, I studied Shakespeare in my own way, and with the help of knowledge derived from my own approach to the Indian writers like Dr. Radhakrishnan and Dr. Tagore. So I could understand those works of Sanskrit much better with the kind of introduction which I had from such great and illustrious thinkers. There are many who have written about Shakespeare. They have many of them are his admirers. Some of them are his critics. But I am neither an admirer, I am neither a critic, nor a mere passing reader. I am no doubt an admirer, but admiration means nothing in this context. Because we can do nothing to follow him, we can only look at his writings and wonder at the tremendous input of original thinking, which Shakespeare gives us his gives us his gives us knowledge, full stop. Now I wish to conclude by saying thank you to all my audience who have listened to me with my book. I have yet to give it a proper name. I am not thinking, I am not, I may arrive at a proper name, I will, and I hope that it will also meet with the approval of the reading public as a whole. I can only say. So I am waiting for the time when the book will be printed and released for publication. Thank you very much. I express my thanks also to my father who taught me Shakespeare's Macbeth to start with, and who made me feel interested in Shakespeare. Therefore, his interest in literature was responsible for my interest in English literature. My father was interested not only in English literature but also in Sanskrit literature and Telugu literature, which he studied with great eagerness. To complete this note with my own name, which is Sage Suryanarayana Rao, I was trained for the legal profession because my father also happened to be an outstanding lawyer and he trained me for the legal profession. I was apprentice at law under him, and he also read some of the classics of Valmiki and Kalidasa along with me. Thus, I became interested in great works of English and Sanskrit and Telugu. So, I had contacts with all the brilliant poets of all these three languages. And I feel grateful for those contacts which I had with those illustrious poets of the languages mentioned. Thank you. Thank you.